Hello everybody, welcome back and thanks for tuning in. So for those of you following the adventures of my dwarf army, I just suffered a crushing defeat against the Bretonnians and moved to the adjacent table to face off against a Dark Elf army, still 1500 points. From left to right there for the dwarves, you can see I've got one gyrocopter on the far left flank. In the middle there's a horde of great weapon dwarf warriors, got my Thane BSB and my Runesmith General in that unit. To the right then is the organ gun, also with a Master Engineer behind it. There's the Grudge Thrower at the back, 20 Iron Breakers on the right there with full command, and another gyrocopter in front of them. As you can see, I've got the gyrocopters right on the line there, ready to buzz around the enemy and become annoying. And I've got the rest of my dwarves a little bit deeper into my deployment zone. I've played Dark Elves only once before, and I just remember them being super fast and being able to just be all over me on turn 2. So hopefully with those gyrocopters I could get in the way a little bit, try and stop the onslaught. By the look of the army I was facing up, there wasn't any one particular unit I was scared of, but just the speed, also the sort of nasty magic I could face, and it was my first time up against a War Hydra as well, so I was keen to see what that could do. And the Dark Elves, from right to left, you've got 5 Dark Riders there, already in their vanguarded position on the Dark Elf left flank. You've then got a unit of 10 Cold One Knights, I believe, with full command as well. And over on the other side, you've got around 30 or so, I want to say 31, 32 of the Black Ark Corsairs. Lovely models, I think, the Corsairs. I've never really been too keen on Dark Elves as an army. I just don't really particularly get into the fluff around it. But there's something about the Corsairs which I find really cool, with their cloaks and their double hand weapons. So it was really cool to see those models on the tabletop. You then got the big Hydra next to it, and tucked in the back corner there was Morathi. And there she is on the Dark Pegasus there. Now I can't remember exactly what spell she took, although you can see the cards in the background of the picture there. And I want to say it was Doombolt. I know there were some spells from the Law of Shadow there. I think it was Melakoth's, the Enfeebling Foe, and I can't remember what the fourth one is. But yeah, I think it was 2 Shadow and 2 Dark. The Dark Elves won the toss for first turn and just surged forward super quick. As you can see there, the Dark Riders had already vanguarded forward and just really came up close to my lines there, close to the gyrocopter. You can also see the Cold Ones also marching forward, and the rest of the army surging forward, as you can see, with Morathi popping out of her hiding place in the corner there to settle down on the far left flank, just out of arc of my gyrocopter, and ready to throw some nasty magic at me, I'm sure. Although she didn't look like she was within charge range of the rest of my army, so perhaps I could escape her deadly close combat attacks for another turn or two. And also the fact that she's on the Pegasus and away from the rest of the army there meant that she can be a target for my shooting attack. She wouldn't be getting any lookout serves or anything like that, so perhaps I could try and pick her off from there. The magic phase was quite mediocre, but Morathi managed to doombolt that nearby gyrocopter and destroy it. Dwarf turn 1 then, so I was toying with the idea of declaring a charge with the Ironbreakers into the Dark Riders. I'd have to declare with the gyrocopter as well, though, obviously, because the gyrocopter was in the way, and really sort of get aggressive on that flank. However, it might open me up to the Cold One Knights on the charge, and perhaps, I might fluff my shooting attacks with the organ gun. So decided to just stay back and do a round of shooting. And a very successful round of shooting it was. So the gyrocopter did a bombing run and managed to kill all but one of the Dark Riders, who turned and fled, as you can see in the picture. The organ gun unleashed, I think I rolled an 18 or something, and just annihilated the whole unit of Cold One Knights. It really was quite spectacular. And then, to add insult to injury, the Grudge Thrower pivoted to the left and lobbed a big stone high into the air with the rune of accuracy, and it just landed straight on Morathi's head with a big d6 wounds. And really, it kind of felt a bit embarrassed at this point to have such a spectacular shooting phase on turn 1 and to wipe out the general and only mage, the fast cavalry and the heavy cavalry all in turn 1. I mean, it really just was everything going right from the offset. And this happens sometime in Warhammer. You can get the dice roll very favourably for one of the players in the first turn, and it really just sets the tone for the rest of the game. And this is how we were left at the end of Dwarf turn 1 with the Corsairs, with the BSB in the unit, the War Hydra just in the centre of the table there, without any support units. On Dark Elf turn 2 then, the army surged forward. They weren't quite within charge range, but they certainly will be next turn. On Dwarfs turn 2, again I toyed with the idea of holding back on the charge and just throwing everything I had, shooting attacks wise, into the War Hydra. I chose instead to just take the opportunity and just charge my Dwarf Warriors in. We were still a big horde, very much intact, with great weapons on the charge. We would be strength 6. And I think it was just turned out to be the right move. It was a good opportunity to try and kill that Hydra. In the shooting phase, I got the gyrocopter to put a very healthy steam gun template over that Black Ark Corsairs unit. I think the Rock Clobber missed, and the organ gun perhaps nowhere near as good as turn 1, but got a few wounds off that unit as well, with the Ironbreakers moving up on the right hand side. In the close combat phase, the Dwarf Warriors took about 5 casualties, I think it was, from the War Hydra, before putting just enough wounds into it to bring the beast down, which I was very happy about. I mean, everything was going right in this game so far, and to get just enough wounds to bring it down to 0 was very fortunate, because as you know, it would be getting wounds back in the next round of combat, and we would lose our strength bonus, and so we didn't have to be stuck there for long, and we were able to overrun into the Black Ark Corsairs unit. So that really was the beginning of the end. On Dark Elves turn 3, the fight raged on, with the Corsairs eventually breaking, the Dwarf Warriors pursuing hot on their heels, and in Dwarf turn 3 I was able to turn all my guns to bear on the remaining Corsairs and the Gyrocopter as well, and wipe them out. So it finished the turn 3 tabling of the Dark Elves. So a bit of an anticlimax then, just a short video for today. It's been another quite quick game. With 1500 points so far, I'm still sort of finding my feet with it. And I find there are some big decisions to be made in terms of, do I take smaller, medium-sized units, or do I take a big unit and then lack a bit of flexibility? But with 1500 points, I've sort of had one big loss and one big win. And obviously the best games of Warhammer are when you have a longer game where it's not clear who's going to win, and there's a bit of to and fro, and it swings to one player and it swings to the other player. So, how can we have a bit of a debrief here? What went wrong for the Dark Elves? What could they have done? Not a Dark Elf player myself, of course, but I always try and put the shoe on the other foot and think, if I was the other team, what would I have done? And of course, there's not a lot you can do when the dice are heavily in favour of one player. Obviously, I had a really good shooting phase on that turn 1, and pretty much kneecapped his whole army, which sort of set the tone for the rest of the game. But you need to, if I was facing off against this dwarf army, first of all, when you see an organ gun with the engineer next to it, there you know that there's danger there, and that has the capability of putting out some very accurate strength 5 armor piercing hits. So you've got to really pay some respect to that. Maybe more chaff would have helped. You had the Dark Riders, I had the Gyrocopters, obviously Marathi's flying as well, and with the magic, I think the Dark Elves do sort of win the chaff war eventually, because they can take out those Gyrocopters with magic, or they can, have the fast cav to twist and turn and force the Gyrocopters into a bad position, or force them to flee. And I don't think Chris's army lacked the punch, because he had the Cold One Knights, he had the War Hydra, and he was unlucky when I charged his Hydra, actually, because I got just enough wounds to kill it, and he didn't get a good roll on his breath weapon. I was able to win that combat quite easily. But on another day he would have held me up there, perhaps got the charge in with the with his infantry as well. And war machines can go wrong, and if I hadn't had that shooting phase, it could have been a very different game. But yeah, it was enjoyable, if not a short game. Chris has got a lovely painted army. I should have asked him to get some close-ups for the camera next time. Hopefully I'll remember in the future. Yeah, so that's all for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Speak to you all soon.